Okay. All right. It is 7 o'clock. I'm going to call this meeting to order. The Smithville Village Council roll call.
Allen?
I'm here if you said something, sorry.
Okay. Haas,
Here.
Heicher,
Here.
Mullins,
Here.
Reed,
Here.
Thorne,
Here.
All right. You should have received prior to the meeting a copy of the last minutes from the last meeting. If you've had the opportunity to review those, I would entertain a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented.
Was it? Sorry, I'm having two trains of thought here.
Beverly, you corrected the date on the large trash, right? Okay, then I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Larry, second. We have motion and second to approve the minutes as written. Do we have any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Allen,
Yes.
Haas,
Yes.
Heicher,
Yes.
Mullins,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Thorne.
Yes.
All right, next item on our agenda would be the police report. You should have received an email, and I'll turn it over to the chief for his presentation of the items he has for us this evening.
Good evening. I hope everyone can see and hear me okay. My computer is doing an update, so I'm having to use my phone to participate this evening. I've got several items, I believe all of which relate one way or another to personnel. The first is incident to the vote at the last council meeting. Rico Ontiveros has been brought on board as our newest part-time officer. He is currently in training, and hopefully that will wrap up in the not too distant future, and you'll see him out on patrol on his own. Also, helping us out with our staffing is Sergeant Jen Barnett. Should be back to work on the 22nd of this month, so I'm looking forward to having her back. As I believe everyone knows, Officer Christian Wirtz is going to be leaving us. In fact, this is his last week. His last day will be this coming Sunday. So we will be losing him, which is going to put us in a little bit of a staffing crunch between the time he leaves and the time the sergeant comes back to work. The good news is, and I believe everyone should have a copy of the letter, Officer Keith Yost, who worked with us up until, I believe, January or maybe it's February of 2019, contacted me this past week, and he is interested in coming back in a part-time capacity to work some shifts for us, which I think is going to be very beneficial if we can bring him back on board. He is currently employed by the Cleveland Clinic Police Department, so he has maintained his certification during the time that, since he's left Smithville. His availability would allow him to work a shift or two each week, so he's not going to be working a tremendous amount, but he should be able to help us out some. I believe everyone should have a copy of the letter where I outline this formally. And at this time, I would request that Keith Yost be brought back on board as a part-time officer with the Smithville Police Department.
And again, you might note in the information that he's presented, given that his employment with us on a prior period, it would not be at a probationary rate, but it would be at the obviously the permanent rate for that part-time position.
Yeah, I'd like to make that motion that we hire Keith Yost as part-time officer. And when is that effective, Chief, again?
That's a good question.
Okay.
I've got him coming in tomorrow morning, and about as soon as we can get the paperwork processed and get him back on the road. So I would say probably not later than next Monday, and might be earlier than that.
Okay, I'm not sure how you want to word that, Mayor, but effective as soon as all the legalities are taken care of.
I would say effective this, obviously the 7th. That way then it allows the chief the opportunity once, obviously he's obviously would be available as soon as the paperwork's done. But I would just make the 7th. That way then we have no issue.
Okay, on the 7th, please, for that motion.
I think this is a really good idea. I'll second that.
Okay, we have motion and second to hire Officer Keith Yost for, again, a part-time position, again, with no probationary period. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call.
Boss,
Yes.
Heicher,
Yes.
Mullins,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Thorne,
Yes.
Allen.
Yes,
Thank you.
And I believe the only other thing, I have on my list is officer evaluations, which at this point are done. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending how we decide to look at it, I didn't have nearly as many to do this time as I normally do. But I will have those available for tomorrow morning's meeting there.
Okay, thank you. Each of you also should have received a copy of the September 2020 police report as well in the email that was sent out for police department information. Are there any other questions for the chief? If there aren't any, you're welcome to stay with us. But like I say, obviously, if there's no further questions, you're welcome to leave as well, chief. And I will see you tomorrow morning.
I believe I will, because everybody is about this big on my phone. So I think I'm
Okay.
going to bow out for this evening.
All right, thank you.
Chief.
Moving on to our agenda, some correspondence. Fall large trash pickup is Monday, October 26th. That is on the website as well as on the sign out front of Village Hall. Then again, 2 leaf pickup dates have been established with Paradise Lawn Care. The first will be October 26th that week, then November 9th and November 23rd. And as always, what they will do is if there's a need, they may have an additional follow-up after the 23rd, just depending upon how the leaves come down and what happens weather-wise. Then the only other item that would be their correspondence, we included a copy for all of you in the email that went out, was the notice from Wayne County Commissioner, specifically the Planning Department. It's relative to Agricultural Security District. Again, there's a number of farms that are notated on there that are going together and asking for there to be certification relative to the Ag Security District, which will limit the type of obviously development that could happen in that area. Again, it is a public hearing. You're welcome to attend if you have interest. My intent would be that I will attend on behalf of the village. Again, our position has been that we're supportive of this effort on behalf of obviously the farmland that lies between us and Worcester. Questions on that or any of the other correspondent items? If not, then we'll move on into old business. Really, the first thing we have on the old business is a vacant lot mowing ordinance discussion. Again, at the last meeting, as you recall, we had discussed the 2 pieces of that legislation that would, first of all, the first piece would remove the separate legislation current in place that relates to mowing of vacant lots. And then the second piece of legislation then would obviously repeal portions of, but then replace with it new language that would cover not only developed lots, but also vacant lots, and it would fall under the property maintenance portion of the ordinances. And again, as you recall, we did ask John Parker to weigh in on those. I think that's something that was forwarded to everyone should have received between the last meeting and this meeting. And again, too, I think there were some other questions, but I think that Jason had answered those relative to enforcement. But again, I open it for discussion. And again, too, I don't know if John wants to share anything specific, he's welcome to. But then, like I say, we're open for discussion on the ordinances.
The only thing I have, Mayor, is I understand the clarification, or I've got clarification of the penalties, and I sent those out to everyone, I believe. I also asked in an email that, pardon me, if Jason would quickly explain those to everyone so they all have the same explanation that I have, the knowledge that I have. Everything else, my only other comment would be I agree with what Mr. Parker has wrote back to us. I don't know if we made any moves on those yet. I guess that's up to Jason to take care of that at this point. I was kind of waiting to hear back from him if those are all taken care of.
So I will say I have not done anything on the new things from John Parker. I was waiting for direction from council, but if that's what council wants, I'm happy to get that prepared. As it relates to the proposed ordinances here, there's a proposal to repeal the specific section about keeping weeds down, and that's being replaced with a new section under the property maintenance code that defines specifically how high weeds and grass and whatnot can be within a lot. And I know we got into some of the penalties, whatnot, last meeting, but just briefly, there's a section specifically of the property maintenance code currently that requires all citizens of the village to be in compliance with the code. There is another section that allows the zoning administrator to inspect and enforce the code. And that includes making third parties do whatever is necessary to bring non-conforming property into conformity with the code and recouping any costs that the village might have to outlay to do that. If we outlay costs, under the current code, we have the ability to certify them to the auditor to be assessed against property taxes. We have the ability to go after them for criminal penalties for repeated violations. It outlines what we have to do to provide notice to recoup those. But basically the existing code is all encompassing. So all we're doing is just changing the grass requirement, and the enforcement all is up to John Parker, as is any other provision of the code. Is that kind of cleared up?
Yeah, Jason, this is Scott. I had kind of I had a question that you kind of answered just there. I've been thinking about this as it relates to, there's a difference between an entire property being a nuisance and just a small section. So I'm thinking of, the tree lawn or curb yard or whatever. Or a small section of a lot where the owner's in compliance with, say, 90 to 95% of the square footage or acreage, but there's a little bit. And I don't know if it's feasible to send somebody out to have that mowed versus not, but that would leave it up to Mr. Parker's discretion. So that has answered my question that I've been thinking about.
And I guess I want to check, everyone did receive earlier by email, I'm assuming, the comments that John Parker had shared that I forwarded. Okay. And again, I guess for direction to Jason, are we in concurrence with going ahead and directing Jason to basically modify the ordinance to reflect those thoughts?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right,
I'll get to work on it and get something distributed.
okay, that sounds good. And then you'll distribute it to us. And again, too, I think that, I have no issue with us going ahead. We placed on first reading last meeting, correct?
Yes.
I don't see any reason we can't place it on second reading, knowing that obviously adjustments that we've talked about will be made prior to us actually considering the final ordinance. So, and Jason, also just for information, if you would, When you have that completed, if you make certain Beverly gets it, I did have her post the initial ordinance on our website. So that way it's available to folks, that if they were to look to see what we're considering, it is out there for public, obviously consumption. So again, once you make those modifications, if you get that to her, she can post that on the website so people are aware of what it is we're looking at and discussing. Okay.
Sure. Yep.
All right. Again, I guess what I would say is folks are to the point that you did like to have no further questions regarding where we're going with it. I would entertain a motion, a second to place it on second reading.
Motion to place on second reading.
Second, Thorne.
Okay, we have motion second to place the mowing ordinance on second reading. Any further questions or discussion at this point? Hearing none, roll call.
Eicher,
Yes.
Mullins,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Thorne,
Yes.
Allen,
yes,
Foss,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other items of old business? The only thing we had on the agenda, but does any members of council have anything from old business standpoint they'd like to raise? All right, if there's none, then we'll move on to new business. The first item on the agenda, given that we've already set the dates, we obviously realized that the contract with Paradise Lawn Care for the leaf pickup was a 3-year contract, which expired last year's pickup. So again, too, we needed to approve, obviously, new contract with Paradise. It is for the exact same amount, same terms, nothing has changed other than obviously the dates of the contract. This would be for the years of 20, 21, 22, and I'm assuming it says, let me read here. So it'd be for the next 3, well, it says 23, so it must be a 4-year contract. I'm looking at it. So it'd be years 20, 21, 22, and 23. So basically, they're willing to extend to us the same rate for that period of time. And again, it is based upon actual amount of leaves and the time spent. So again, it's not to exceed the 10,000, and generally it comes in under that. So again, I don't know if there's any questions pertaining to the contract, and you should have received a copy of that in your email packet. And if not, I
Mayor.
guess I would, yeah.
Mayor, that $10,000 figure is during the course of the contract, the four years?
No,
Or just
no.
per year?
Per year, that's a
Per year.
pure amount.
Yeah.
Again, it normally comes under that. So
Okay, yeah,
Any
pardon
other
my ignorance on. Yeah.
no, that's okay. And that I didn't make that clear. Any other questions on that?
I make
Okay.
a motion. Was there a question? Sorry.
No.
Make a motion to approve that we have Paradise Lawn Care contracted for leaf pickup from 2020 through 2023.
Second, Oz.
We have motion and a second to approve the contract from Paradise Lawn as presented. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Mullins,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Thorne,
Yes.
Allen,
yes,
Foss,
Yes.
Eicher,
Yes.
All right, thank you. The other items under new business, you should have received an income tax report that Becky's prepared for us. As you look at it, you realize, in the end of June, we were almost 99,600, obviously short on our plan. But as of the end of September, we are 43,928. Again, if you keep in mind the fact that earlier in the year, in March, we did return 22,000 to the state that had been obviously given to us the prior calendar year that we recognized as a mistake. But once they realized it, of course, we returned that money. So when you take that in consideration, really, we're doing very well considering, and hopefully the last months of the year, we will hopefully make or close that gap even further in regards to what we project. So that would be the first item that you received from financial.
Hey, Mayor,
Yes,
on that note, I just want to point out and let everyone know Becky and I are working together to pursue individuals that have not paid and not filed over the last couple of years. So that's ongoing as well.
Correct. And again, obviously, we've seen some from just the initial letter that was sent from the village out to individuals. But now at this point in time, they've passed the deadline we gave them. So obviously at this point, Jason's going to take over the collection on those and filing. The next item that you should have received as well would have been the monthly financial report. It shows each of the funds and it shows obviously estimated revenues, year-to-date revenues, our appropriations and our year-to-date expenses. And it shows where we are. Again, this is the one piece, it's the monthly financial report for September 30th. That is something that we do need to approve. I would ask if there's any questions concerning the report. And if there aren't any, I would entertain a motion and second to approve the September financial report.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the September financial report. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Reed. Thorne,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Haas,
Yes.
Heicher,
Yes.
Mullins,
Yes.
All right, thank you. The other items you received from a financial standpoint, you also would receive the statement of cash position. Again, going through September 30th of 2020. Again, it shows basically the ending shows again receipts, disbursements, month amounts as well as year to date. It shows obviously unexpended balance along with outstanding encumbrances. It shows the ending balances for each of those funds as well. And that's for your information. The other two items you would have received were the detailed reports. One is the revenue report showing each by each line item as far as revenues that have been received for the period 9 through 9/30. And again, too, the last is the expenditures or expense account report for the same period of time, showing each by line item. Shows a detailed report that obviously, if there's any specific questions that you have concerning any of the funds, you have access to that information to be able to review. Are there any questions for myself or Pam concerning those expense reports and revenue reports that have been presented?
Just a quick question. What's the difference between park receipts and park deposit fund? It's under grants and aids. I assume some of that is donations that we received in the last month or so. If it's an offline answer that needs to be given, that's fine.
Guess is, and I don't know, Pam can weigh in. The park receipts appears though the numbers match what was given as far as donations. Pretty close as far as donations. Park deposit fund, I'm guessing, and obviously maybe for people that obviously make deposits relative to rentals possibly.
Yes, yes, it's for rentals.
Okay.
Yep.
We do see some, obviously not a lot, but we'll see some obviously income based upon rentals of the facility, whether it's pavilions or whatever.
Okay, that makes sense.
At least me and Pam are in agreement with the answer. So that's always good.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions on those reports? Again, if there aren't any, then we're going to move on. Is there any other new business that needs to be brought before us this evening? If there is no other new business, we'll move into liaison reports. First would be equipment with Scott.
I don't have anything to report for equipment, but I did want to take a moment to thank Mike and our village staff and Matt and the park board for the use and care of the soccer fields. We've got about 60 kids this season that use that about 3 days a week, and it's very well maintained and appreciated. So thank you.
All right. Moving on then, as far as Larry and the fire.
I have nothing tonight. Our meeting is not till this Thursday, actually. Thank you.
Okay. And there's nothing else with the police. Moving on then, Veterans Memorial, anything that Joe has?
Had a meeting October 29th, anticipating another meeting towards the end of this month, or September 29th rather, anticipating meeting the end of this month. Right now they're continuing to look into the possibility of adding to the memorial, specifically something to recognize canines used in the military and their assistance, as well as the possibility of additional pavers to add to the memorial and recognizing individuals.
Okay. Thank you. Then moving on, we have Parks and Trees with Matt.
We have several trees within the park grounds, as well as one at a residence in a back alley off of Main Street that we need to take down at some point, particularly the residents, since that is the village's responsibility. We have a couple quotes that Mike Turner has gotten from 2 area tree services, and Mike and I have discussed and decided which quote to go with. It's with Rogue, just over $5,000 for all of those trees. I sent the email this morning to a few individuals on the call.
Yeah, and Matt, I need to get back to you on that too.
Yeah, just let me. Yeah, I didn't expect to answer tonight, but I think like I said, the priority will be the one off of Main Street, and then go down the line from there, depending on the fund availability for that. And along that line, I just received a quote from Nate Butcher, who's part of our park board, regarding the brick dust treatment that was part of the capital expenses for the park. It's the first quote. It's around $11,000. It's for field 1, which is that field below the existing water tower, below the cemetery there, that, all the water just runs right down the hill and into the infield. And I was down at the park this evening prior to the meeting tonight and walked through that infield, and the baseline between on either side of second base is still fairly wet from that rain we had last week. So even after that effort I think it was in August, to run a line through to the first base to try to unlodge some obstructions. There's still some drainage issues. There probably will be, unless something's done to alleviate that. It's a pretty involved process. From reading the quote, it's a landscaping group out of Copley, Ohio, which is up the road near Fairlawn there. I'll instruct Nate to try to obtain a second quote. They are asking or stating in the quote that we have that it's something that we want to do fairly quickly. If we're going to do it for next year's season, they recommend that you do it in the fall so it has time to settle. They're putting tons of sand down, and then this clay mortar treatment on top of it, and it needs to settle over the winter to be fully effective for the spring and summer seasons. But again, just like with the trees, it's going to be a funding issue to see if that's something that we want to do this year, and just prioritizing these projects. And then lastly, like I said, I was down at the park this evening for the meeting with a couple park board members, Wayne Morgret and Mark Lightfoot. And I think I mentioned in the previous meeting where we tilled an area above the first base line of field 1, the hillside below the community center that's in village property. We're putting in an area for some sunflowers, a little patch there. It's not a big area, maybe 20-30 foot wide by 10 foot deep at best. start small and then we'll see how it works out. Mark Lightfoot brought a Ventrac tractor with a tiller implement on the front, and he tilled it up, and Wayne did some raking. He's going to plant some seeds, and I sat with a lemonade and watched them. So kidding. But just a little beautification effort there in that part of the park as people are coming down the hill from South Milton. And we'll see how that looks next year when the seeds come in. That's it.
I had a question, Matt. So I know it's been discussed before in previous years about them getting the brick dust on that field. I know that I've talked to Nate personally a couple times and suggested maybe doing some fundraisers on part of the SYB to maybe put toward the field maintenance, perhaps candy bar sales, or has anything been discussed or grants been found to put toward that? Because I'm guessing if it's needing to be done soon, it's probably not, I mean, I'm just guessing, probably not going to happen this year, but I didn't know if there was other funding that you guys had found.
Not yet. And that's one of the capital projects, like I said, that was submitted to the Village Finance Committee.
Yeah, I
and,
did.
And I think that's I know that's something that we did discuss in our first meeting in July, when Nate was at that meeting, and I'll circle back to Nate to see if that's something that the SYB can be part of their efforts, put some skin in the game to raise some funds, since they'll be using those for the future, for the future. So
I'm familiar. I mean, obviously several of you probably are with they really did raise a lot of money selling the candy bars. I mean, I know it's not health promoting, and maybe with COVID, that's not something we can do, but I actually ran the candy bar part of it, and they made thousands of dollars. So
I just bought a bag of candy bars from a coworker today for his son's Cub Scout troop.
okay.
So at least the Cub Scouts are out there selling candy bars in the middle of COVID. So I don't see why Smithville Youth Baseball couldn't either. So.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a quick question about that drainage, Matt. Do we have any plans for the future to get that drainage properly fixed?
I don't know all the details of it, John, other than as far as the drain from that second base area goes, like I said, they ran the line in August with the camera. There was some obstruction, and I think they put in a catch basin on the other side of the outfield by the walking path. And then that's going to be a better entrance to mitigate things in the field drainage system by having that catch basin there. Like I said, you've got that steep, long embankment going up towards the cemetery, up towards the water tower, where, with that grade, you're always going to be dealing with drainage issues like they have. And my understanding with this clay treatment, that really helps alleviate that when you have that situation.
Do we know if the catch basin alleviated any of it?
I think in August it did some, but from my understanding, it wasn't like that was the fix all to end all, that there was some huge obstruction that's caused these problems over the year. Because my understanding, it's been a problem year in, year out in the spring when we get all those Northeast Ohio rains that come and it just rolls down that hill. And then there's times when they can't use the field for a week or two. And so, this is a forward-looking fix for the future to be able to get in that field and use it more often when we have those wet springs, or even some, wet Julys that we've had from time to time. This one, not so much, but sometimes we get big rains in July too. So.
Also, maybe would add, John, is that if I understood Mike, that extra catch basin allows them better access with the equipment they currently have be able to maintain what was there. Part of the challenge was they were unable to maintain it. So that's why we added a catch basin as well, give them another access point in which we're able to keep the lines open and clean.
Yeah,
that
right.
serve the field. So,
Well, it did help somewhat then.
it did help somewhat, but it's not the be all to end all. Yeah.
okay, any other questions on that?
No, not for me.
Okay, then moving on, then we'd have streets and sidewalks with John.
I don't really have much other than I've been in contact with Mike, Mr. Turner about plans for next spring. And that's everything else. Everything in that part of the world seems to be pretty much up to snuff at this point. We'll see what winter brings and go forward.
Hey, John, I got a question for you. I had an inquiry about the intersection of Mill Street and 585. My answer to them was, we're waiting for it to settle. But it's wallowed out pretty good. I don't know what to tell them. Are we
Are you
able to do anything?
I'm sorry, say that again. I understood Mill Street and 585. Yeah, it's where we're waiting.
We're waiting
kinda-
for it to settle.
Yeah, I appreciate you handling that. But I don't know. I don't have the answer for that right now, and I'll try to find it for you.
Again, I'm assuming, Larry, you're referring where the gas company did the repairs that they did?
It's rough.
Well, and again, ultimately, the gas company were responsible for the repair of that. Given that they obviously removed the asphalt that was in place, it was new, obviously to be able to fix their gas line. But of course, there was a gas leak there that was actually identified, I think, if I remember, by Adam. And obviously, due to the nature of it, they did have to replace a portion of the gas line there. But because of the fact they removed it, ultimately they are going to be responsible for obviously replacing the asphalt. So,
Okay. Hey, just so you know, the gas company was up on front of my house and down the street with a big gas sniffer this morning. I don't know what they were doing. He just waved and kept going. So I don't know what they were looking for.
great. If there's anything else that you have, John?
No, but thank you, Larry. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean.
Then moving on, we have finance personnel. Trish?
Okay, so I know you're probably wondering why I didn't send you the insurance emergency response plan. Every time we think we're finished, something else comes up, something fine tooth. And I've been working with the tech guy, Brian, on some computer verbiage and VPN safety and just all kinds of things that we found in the last few weeks. So I'm still in the process of finishing that with him. I don't know if you noticed or not, but it does sound a little better in our meeting tonight. We did try to address that issue. We called the cable company. Brian reset the router, which I think is helping. We checked to make sure that we had enough speed and all the things through the cable company, and we do in fact have enough. So I think it sounds pretty good tonight, in my own opinion.
It's better.
Yeah, it's better. And also, we're looking at computer usage, some sort of, I don't know what am I trying to call it, Tom? Some sort of usage agreement for anyone that may be using the VPN or taking computers home or anything like that in the case of emergency, or even just in the village itself, something on paper, technology use agreement. So we're in the process of tweaking that as well and coming up with something like that. So it kind of opens doors. Each time I read this thing, we find something else. So I promise I'm working on it, but there's just a couple of things that we have to fix up to make sure when it says we're doing something, we have the proper things to do it. So I'll be sending it out as soon as we're finished with it. That's all I have. Oh, I did get my evaluations from the supervisors. On record, I still need to get Becky's from Becky, unless, Tom, did you get it from her?
No, I've not yet, but I'm assuming tomorrow.
Okay, I did get Mike's, and Chief has his evals done, so that'll be coming up too when we start talking the salary ordinance. I think that's it for me.
Okay. And again, in all fairness to Trish, sometimes it's me to hold up because when she finds something, she asks me to review it and to weigh in. And again, too, not that we didn't already have a policy relative to computer use, but this is specific to obviously the pandemic and working off site and some things along those lines. So there's some things yet we're trying to work on to implement into that as well. But thank you, Trish. Moving on then, done with liaison reports. For mayor's report, just a few things I'd like to report to you. Obviously, we did have the pre-construction meeting with obviously the contractors. It was last Thursday here at Village Hall. We met with the contractor for Caldwell, which is the company that will be actually erecting the new water tower, along with also GE Baker, which is the company that will be putting the new water main. Obviously, Chris Brubaker was here from CT. He will be the individual that will provide oversight throughout the construction of the project. He ran the meeting. We talked about a number of the items that were needing to be covered. Some of the specifics, obviously, talked about the importance of timing and the contract constraints as far as completion dates. He reminded the contractors the importance to meet those dates. Because if not, if they exceed that, there's $1,000 per day penalty in the contract. He just wanted to make them aware of those things. Obviously, if I recall correctly, the water main contract has to be completed by the year end of 2020. They did give us a schedule when they anticipate to come into town, which will be in November, to begin that project. And they indicate the weeks on his calendar that they had to submit as far as what portion of the projects will be done. There were a lot of detailed things covered. And he also covered the aspect that with the contract, if there's any expenditures or items that differ from the contract itself, the importance that we receive written notice of that, and that he basically shared with them that if he has not received notice prior to that work being done, the only thing he will give them is a thank you. We appreciate it. And he indicated how important it was that he be included prior to any spending or any changes so that he can notify us so we can sign off on them throughout the course of the contract. One of the things we did invite was a representative from the bar and restaurant, given the fact that the new water main will be going across their main driveway. And also it's going to be impacting them from a water standpoint when we do that cutover. But they were invited to come here, which allowed them to have access to the contractors, where they were given contact numbers for both the foremans for each of the companies. So they obviously have issues, they can address them directly. We also indicated they could direct them to Chris to act on our behalf or myself. Some of the things also was useful in them being here. Caldwell obviously was needing to be able to locate job trailer, which will not fit on our land, obviously with them building the tower on their land. So they secured approval from them in relationship to locating a job site trailer onto the barn restaurant property. And then also there were some other things relating to that, specifically as to some of the engineering that was made in an effort to make certain that water would be continuous flow, even if they have a drop in pressure during this project, so that obviously they would not be impacted from a business standpoint, because most of the work will be conducted during the course of daytime hours when obviously they're open. Some of those issues were discussed and were rectified. And I think the other thing that was obviously was talked about were maybe some of the things as far as specifics relating to even changing the grade possibly out there slightly as part of this project. Again, as they're doing it, it was something that could be done within the scope of what we already had in place. So again, it was I think a good meeting. Obviously, Chris is very attentive to obviously the project, the detail of it, as well as the costs associated to it. Again, too, as we went through that, there were some questions that we were going to obviously answer, and different individuals. And Chris will follow up to make certain all those things happen. So we will be seeing, obviously, some work beginning out there real soon, which is kind of exciting to hear as well. And again, too, I think that's the only thing that I really have. BPA meeting will be next Monday, the 12th. At that meeting, they will be discussing as far as I&I, and specifically the proposal from CT as it relates to an ongoing plan, a master plan as it relates to trying to address the issues concerning the sewer plan. So again, that will be something that will be discussed at that meeting. 12. And I think those are the only things I really have to share. Moving on, then I guess the things that we'd have before us is we have bills to be approved tonight. You should have had 2 lists. One was a list of some bills that due dates were prior to this meeting, which have been paid, but we're asking for your approval. The second list are a list of bills that's normal that need to be approved for payment. And you should have received an email for both of those. I would entertain a motion and a second to pay the bills.
Motion to approve the bills in the amount of $34,319.69.
Second, Hawes.
Okay, we have motion and a second to approve the bills as presented. Any questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Thorne,
Yes.
thank you. Allen,
Yes.
Haas,
Yes.
Heicher,
Yes.
Mullins,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
All right. Is there anything else that any members of council have need to bring forward? If there isn't, then I guess I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And a second.
Second?
All right. We have motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. I appreciate it. If you need anything, obviously feel free to contact me by email or phone in the interim.
Right.
Thank you.